Today it is about the science of alchemy as far as it is related with the Aquarian age. We have the tradition of chemistry and alchemistry in all the ancient nations. It seems that the two sciences were not different during the earlier centuries of mankind. Gradually, it came to be understood that alchemy is different from chemistry. The science of alchemy is defined by some as the science which gives transmutation to the baser metals to be transmuted into the nobler metals. And some say that it is literally true, and some say that it is only symbolically true. As a result, we have two traditions of alchemy. The one is the belief in the true transmutation of the physical metals, and the other is a way of symbolic expression to the transmutation of man. The psychological faculties of the human being are compared with the values of some metals in nature, and the transmutation of these psychological faculties into the nobler faculties, that is, transforming the consciousness of man from the psychological level to the soul level, is described as the true science of alchemy by some people. In that way, they have developed a terminology and symbolism of their own, just as the scientists of astrology developed a symbolism of their own when they wanted to teach the esoteric aspect of astrology to us. I told you the other day how in astrology the astrologers, instead of using the term I am, they used the symbol of the sun, and how instead of using the word mind, they used the symbol moon as the symbol, and the symbolism served a double purpose. One is to teach the science of correspondences through centuries, and the other is to know the permutations and combinations of the psychological faculties of man, and to understand the emblem of his own polygon of expressions as is understood by the map of his birth horoscope. So we can't say that it is only a terminology that is used to denote certain psychological faculties, but there is at the same time a deeper aspect of the subject. Had astrologers not used the symbolism of the planets, had they taught us the science of our psychological faculties directly, they would have attempted to teach us about ourselves something like this. they would have told us that you have 20% of I am awakening in you, about 28% of mind activity, about 32% of intellect, and about 26% of wisdom, and about 30% of push, about only 30.5% of experience gaining apparatus, that is the instrument which can receive the feeding of information to preserve the information in the memory and use it to our advantage when it is required. And finally, having about 34% of what we call joy, and only about 16% music sense or aesthetic sense, and then only 9% of vision. Suppose some professor of an unknown science gives you this polygon about yourself to you. What are you going to do with this polygon? It is as useless as not giving it to you. Now suppose the astrologer speaks in terms of planets. Instead of mind, he used moon. Instead of intellect, he used Mercury. Instead of wisdom, he used Jupiter. Instead of your push, he used Mars. Instead of your memory apparatus, he used Saturn. And instead of the joy aspect of you, he used Venus. And instead of the aesthetic aspect, he used Neptune. And for vision, he used Uranus. For the I am, he used the sun. Now, if you have the astrological chart of yourself given to you and the science of astrology fundamentals taught to you, then there is every incentive for you to look into the map of your horoscope many times, and every time your understanding is vital, not numerical, and it is more living than the psychological way of understanding things. And the benefit is, every time you happen to look to your own chart and try to interpret it to yourself, you will grow more aware of your own synthesis, and you will know more about yourself than your psychological faculties. Same purpose the symbolism of alchemy also serves. About the symbolic aspect of alchemy, we have a more profound symbolism than astrological symbolism. It explains as the synthesis between cosmogenesis and the anthropogenesis, and the relationship between yourself and the world you live in, and the strings that are in your own hands, which are to be pulled by you to lift yourself up. For example, the alchemist says in the astrological symbolism, call the sun to your help. What does that mean? It means the use of solar rays for some experiment. It means you have to expose certain things to the sun's rays, and it also means you have to use a mineral, non-metal called sulfur to your own advantage, both in the medical aspect and the yogic aspect of it. Medically, the science teaches you how you have to use pure sulfur to your own body. And this medicinal branch of alchemy is more reliable than the medical science which teaches us about sulfur today. And on the ethereal plane or the plane of the atmosphere, the scientist means oxygen by sun. When he wants you to use pure oxygen for a certain experiment, he writes in the book that you should use the sun, or he writes you should use sulfur. And for some other purpose, with the same symbol, he means some other thing. He means also the metal gold by sun. But what he teaches to the real disciples is the relationship between these four existences in nature and the correspondences among these existences that are true in nature. How sulfur is related to the sun's rays, and how oxygen is related to the sun's rays, and in what way the metal gold is related to the sun's rays. Instead of giving you four different textbooks of four so-called different sciences, he gives one textbook of the one science which he calls alchemy. By that he means a book of some keys to solve certain secrets in nature. And then he gives the purpose and the use of solving these secrets. How to use them upon yourself. What you should do with sulfur in nature. Exactly on what days and dates you should use sulfur for your body and mind, so that you may not misuse sulfur in the name of medicine, taking daily the medicated tablets. For example, when you are born on a Sunday, he advises you a piece of pure sulfur to keep in touch with your right wrist where you feel the pulse. Whenever you feel your health is somewhat effective, when you follow this advice for a very long time, at the same time not accepting medication at all into the body, and following the laws of nature in our food and drink and habits, you will find your constitution better day by day. And after 1 or 2 years or 3 years, you will find no necessity for using any medicines at all to your constitution. This is not because there is no possibility of getting any disease, but this is because you will have a pure mind about the sulfur nature, which never permits you in the future to misbehave with your food, drink and habits. So he is more concerned with your mind and purifying it. Not only purifying for the present, but also purifying for the future as long as you have this physical body. The capacity to behave with your body as you are expected to behave, and the capacity not to misbehave with your food and drink, etc., it forms the major part of the real health in you. Because what we call disease is only a result of misbehavior and not an entity in itself at all. So, if you read the introduction of any alchemist of the first order of his intelligence, so to say, the alchemist who has attained the stage of a seer, you will find the definition of gold as the definition of health, and the process of purifying the gold is defined as the process of purifying your mind. But if he stops there, it is only philosophy. And we have much philosophy in the world. We need not have any more philosophy from the alchemy books. In fact, we have grown sick with philosophy enough to have headache. We know how to philosophize things as long as we are asked not to obey the law of philosophy. So we have volumes and volumes of philosophy which contains very, very good things. But what stops the alchemist not going or drifting into dry philosophy is the practical key he has as a solution of human sickness. And by sickness he always means the attitude of mind, and he never means any mental or physical disorder by the word sickness. Because what we call the mental and the physical disorders are only results of sickness, and they are not at all sicknesses in themselves. So the attitude to keep our body and habits in the required manner is called the sun or the gold by the alchemist. This is just one example of what you find in the introductory pages of the alchemy books written by a great alchemist of the past ages, whom we know in the history by the name Roger Bacon. And many proofs are there to believe that Roger Bacon is Francis Bacon in his next birth. The one proof is, as Roger Bacon, he promised us that he will continue his writings on alchemy in his next birth. And Francis Bacon has given some literature in continuation of the alchemy literature of Roger Bacon. And the writings of the two incarnations put together give us one single book on the science of alchemy. I think some of you might have heard of the secret of living in others' minds with one's own mind when one is pure. Under the chapter of purifying gold, this wonderful gentleman has explained us that when we have a healthy and a pure mind, we can live in others simultaneously as much as we can live in our body. And we can work as the mind of others also, so that we can give the required strength and encouragement to the other mind and train the owner of the other mind into perfection.
Sure.
And also we can train him in the secrets of certain sciences. This is one aspect of this alchemist which is of interest. And if you go through the poetical works and the dramas of William Shakespeare and his biographies, there was a big riddle about him. He was considered personally as a dullard and an unintellectual, not having any knowledge of any secret sciences, and he was just the average in his intelligence, not enough to enter into the psychology and the minds of many people. But when you go through his dramatic and poetical works, you will find something mysterious, and no poet or dramatist has entered into the human psychology till today as much as William Shakespeare had. This will be your personal testimony if you go through all the works of William Shakespeare with care. And his contemporaries used to wonder at this point how he could produce these works. And more mysterious it was when they have gone through some mystic passages that are found in the dramas of Shakespeare about the 7 ages of man and about the spiritual development of the human soul, about the dual existence of certain characters like Hamlet, and about the astral body clouding the soul and killing the conscience of the human being in certain characters like Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. And the passages uttered by certain characters that are of a mysterious nature, they found something mysterious and wonderful, and they tried to discuss things with the author himself. Whenever they questioned Shakespeare about the passages, the answer was, "I just felt like that and wrote it." And it was many times true that he would not discuss anything about his own writings at all. And subsequently, some of his colleagues and contemporaries understood passages just parallels and copies from the works of Francis Bacon, and subsequently some few lines about alchemy also. And when they questioned about certain things, the answer of Francis Bacon was, "A pure mind lives in the minds of others." So that you can use your pure mind to live with the mind of anyone in his body and train the other person to rectify his mind and body. So he used this symbolism, Francis Bacon, and he didn't use it consistently. Certain things he gave the tables completely, about certain things he did not give. And he says, a person born on a Sunday, when he is suffering from anything, any pain or any so-called disease, physical or mental, can just have a piece of pure sulfur placed on his pulse on Sunday, then he will find himself better. And he used to control the temperature to normal of those people who are born on Sundays. And they advised them to use continuously until their mind was purified. And he has given the equation of the moon with what we call calcium, and among the metals silver, and among the gases nitrogen, the producer of vitamins. He used the symbol of to denote K or potassium, and a gas which in those days he called mercury, which we cannot now decipher, and he equated it with the metal which we call now the mercury. And he gave us one more table and not the other planets, that is Saturn. He used plumbum or lead, under the metals he used plumbum or lead, your daily office and profession items, because office activity is routine activity and not original activity. Suppose a musician is sleeping after a beautiful dinner in the night, and throughout the night he begins to snore. He says like that.
Il fait comme ça.
And if his wife boasts that her husband was singing all through the night and that it was all music, is it correct? He may be a musician, it is true, but he is only a musician when he is awake. While sleeping, he is no more a musician. Similarly, in our routine work, we can't have it as our practice of the etheric body. We should have some other items other than the routine. They may belong to some branch of art, like music or painting or picture drawing or poetry, or it may be something like yogic way of routine, that is practice of meditation according to Patanjali, etc., or regulating your activities in the path of devotion, daily trying to offer yourself up or dedicate yourself up to your own God. All such attempts, when done continuously with a purpose and devotion,